Started. So everybody put your best manners in place because you are now officially going to be uploaded to the cloud. So that said, we're going to get started here. Welcome everybody, come one, come all, to our Summer Kickball 101 presentation. And this is a really special one because 1 year ago, we were just getting kickball off the ground. So for those of you who've been around for a moment, the first Kickball 101 presentation was delivered by myself, David, Blake, and Adam. And I was in Hawaii at the time. So this is a bit of a change in pace. I'm now in the Marin Headlands, a little closer to home, but still across a body of water. So the purpose of this particular presentation is to give an orientation to folks regarding some of the basics of kickball and how the game works. And the goal here is to help to contextualize what's going on in the field for when we have our week 1 of games, which of course are coming up here. So some of the folks here were probably at booty camp earlier this week. Seems like we had a really good turnout there. And this is going to be the more, classroom oriented follow-up and educational content regarding how to play kickball. So that said, we're going to start with introductions. So do a quick overview of who's actually running the league from the standpoint of the leadership board. For those who don't know, Stonewall Sports, we are a nonprofit organization, and San Francisco is the chapter in the PST, so representing the Pacific time zone. Now, within this particular chapter, we have a board of leaders, and some of those individuals will be helping to direct most of the kickball this season. So we'll go through that. Then we're going to go through, kickball rules and implications. So implications here meaning what are some of like the consequences of rules, and what does that mean for specific situations within the game. We'll focus primarily on general layout, followed by base running and kicking, and we'll wrap it up for questions. However, I do want to encourage you all during this presentation, if you have any questions or comments, or if you feel that I maybe have missed something, please feel free to come off mute. This isn't super formal. This is meant to be as informative as possible. And if you have a question or you're seeking clarification, there's a good chance there's somebody else who has the same question. So please don't be shy. All right, let's get into the who's who here. Starting with Blake. Blake, do you want me to give a quick introduction to you, or would you like to come off mute and talk about yourself?
I'll talk about myself. Hello, I'm Blake. I'm the commissioner for Stonewall Sports, San Francisco. Happy to be here and have Tom giving his illustrious presentation probably one last time. Tom's our new director of dodgeball, which is a different sport. And so thank you, Tom, for all of the good times in kickball directorship. Appreciate you.
Of course.
And glad to see people here. Looking
Blake,
forward
what's
to
a
a fun
commissioner?
season. Commissioner, it's kind of just like the president. I run
Mm,
the organization.
I don't remember electing you.
It is a benevolent dictatorship,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
I hope you're having a good experience under my benevolence.
Long may you reign. Thanks, Blake.
Hopefully not. I don't know how much longer I can do this for.
Hush, hush. On to DP. David Patrickson, otherwise known as DP, obviously because of the initials.
Obviously, because of the initials.
Go ahead and give an
Go ahead
introduction.
and give an introduction.
Hi, everyone. I am DP. I am the kickball director, one of your kickball directors, along with Ryan. I've been playing kickball for about 7 years now, and so I'm just here to kind of help administer and make things run as smoothly as possible. You'll see me on the field, kind of just running around between the fields, making sure that everything goes great, making sure all the players and the umps have everything they need to make sure that the games go well. So if you see me, just reach out, ask, tell me any kind of questions, comments, concerns you might have.
Thanks, David.
Thanks, David.
You're welcome, Tom.
All right, we're gonna go ahead and mute David because he's got an echo. On to Ryan Swick. Ryan, welcome to the leadership squad. Go ahead and give an overview of yourself.
Sure, thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Ryan Swick. He, him pronouns. I am new to Stonewall, but not new to kickball. I've played for 7 years in San Francisco and then a year and a half in Michigan, but we don't really talk about that because it wasn't as awesome as this. I also love, or I'm currently playing softball and pickleball as well, and did a bunch of other sports growing up. Started as like a family forcing into, and then I ended up loving it somehow, and so I continued it for the rest of my life. I was captain for a number of kickball teams. I actually joined a kickball league through Meetup when I first moved back to San Francisco in 2015, and then captained a free agent team, and it kind of just went from there. And I love everything that kickball brings in terms of community building and really allowing you to feel this grounding and this connection to where you're living. I'm also the other co-director with DP, so I'm also happy to answer any questions you have, and whether I'm wearing the coral silk of the Soma Saints or the safety orange. Feel free to come up anytime with any help any questions you have, any help you may need, et cetera, et cetera. Nice to see all of you.
Thanks, Ryan. Is Coral Silk technically the name of the hue of your
Yes.
uniforms? That's
Yes, it is.
fantastic. Just make sure that, you don't get bleached like the other coral.
Oh, yeah.
Perfect. So moving on here. We're going to be delving into the rules part of the presentation. Oh, and in case anybody here cares, I am Tom Howe, he, him pronouns, and I'm the former kickball co-director, being supplanted by Ryan here, and I'm going to be moving into the co-dodgeball director role. Actually, I already am. But as it turns out, a big part of my occupation professionally is like giving presentations and stuff. So happy to go ahead and continue the tradition one last time for walking you all through the ins and outs, spokes and wheels of kickball. So we're going to divide this particular presentation into, I guess, 3 different sections, 4 really, if you think about it. Starting with the introduction. So what's the fundamental layout of kickball? How does the flow of the game work? We're going to discuss base running and kicking. These are the most, I would say, situational awareness heavy aspects of the game. And we'll go ahead and close out with a recap. And, again, feel free to ask questions as we go through this. So, introduction, kickball. What is kickball? So, kickball is essentially a cultural phenomenon. Just kidding. It's a sport in which you have 2 teams facing off against each other. If you have experience playing softball or baseball, a lot of this is going to look relatively familiar. Obviously, a lot of us did not play either of those sports growing up. And if any of us played kickball, it was probably when we were like 9 years old. So there are 2 teams, and the 2 teams are going to take turns playing the role of the kicking team and the fielding team. And so keep in mind that you'll each have an equal number of times to kick as you do to field. The objective of each team when they are kicking is to advance runners around the base with the ultimate goal of scoring points or runs. So you can think of the team that is kicking as the team that is on offense. The objective of the fielding team, the team that is on defense, is to prevent the runners from moving around the bases, and especially prevent the runners from reaching home plate. So what is that? Well, this is a bird's eye view of what a kickball field actually looks like. So a couple things to pay attention to. So home plate and the kicking box. This is where each kicker on the kicking team will commence their turn, so to speak, on offense. And it is also the ultimate destination of the kicking team. So you're attempting to advance your runner from home plate when they first kick the ball to first base, second base, third base, and ultimately make it all the way back home. So as far as the kicking team is concerned, each of these bases, first, second, and third, represents a safe zone. So it's a place where runner can be, safe from the fielding team during their long journey back to the home plate. Also, some things to note here are the pitcher's mound. So one of the more prominent, I would say, fielding positions is that of the pitcher. So the pitcher will commence every play by releasing the kickball towards home plate. Notice that between each of the bases is a baseline, and in particular, the line between the back of home plate, so you see home plate's a pentagon, so focusing on the pointy tip, just the tip, all the way to first base and third base, those are not just baselines, but they are foul lines. So those represent the inbounds and outbounds of the field. So we'll go in more detail to each of these concepts, positions throughout this presentation, but it helps to know what exactly the field looks like. And as far as most of you all are going to be concerned, the field consists of 4 different bases, or 4 different plates rather, a pitching mound, and then the surrounding field. Any questions or things that I missed from those of you with a little bit more kickball experience regarding the outline of the field and the format of the game? Perfect. So we're going to talk briefly before we get into base running about positions.
Wait, Pretty Please have a question.
What's your question?
Okay, I think we only have one mic now.
No, you have multiple.
Never mind. Never mind.
Do you want to type
it
your
in the chat.
question?
Is he sharing the screen?
Have you been sharing? Because we don't anything. We've only seen your face.
Oh, you can't see my screen? I'll try this again. Can you see it now?
Yeah, there we go. Thanks.
Perfect. Okay, perfect. So we are going to move into the fielding positions and how they relate to this field. So as far as the fielders are concerned, Russell asks really quickly before we get to that point. Let's go back one screen. Russell asks, why are the bases orange? That's a fantastic question. So I ask myself why my shirt is orange every day. No, but with respect to the bases, the reason why the bases are orange is because they're orange on the field. And the reason why they're orange on the field is because we invested in larger bases. So standard baseball bases are like 12 or 13 inches like per side. And we wanted to avoid fielder and runner collisions when the runners are running to bases. So our bases are closer to like 16 to 16 and a half inches per side. Those particular bases were available only in orange. So the bases in this league are actually orange, with the exception of the safety base here. So you'll see there's a white square out here right next to the first base. The safety base is essentially a base that, generally speaking, runners should run to. So if you're running from home plate to first base, you should actually run to the white base. But they're orange because that's what was available. Does that answer your question? Or we could also just say they had a bad spray tan. I don't know. Honestly, I'm open to ideas, but that is the reason.
We also play on grass, and
Yeah.
so the orange contrast as well. That wouldn't normally be advantageous on dirt, but
Correct.
on dirt.
Correct. That's a good point, Blake. Okay, so hearing nothing more from the Fruity Booties contingent on this particular topic, I will go ahead and move along. If you all have additional questions, feel free to voice them. So in terms of the fielding positions, each team, like I said, is going to alternate taking turns as the fielding team and the kicking team. When your team is fielding, you're going to have 10 people in the field. And essentially you're going to have a catcher. You could think of this person as playing at home plate or right next to it. You have the pitcher who is going to be the one to release the kickball every single play. So each and every play or episode of kickball is going to start and end with the pitcher, as we'll discuss. Then there's going to be four other individuals within what we would call the infield. So the infield consists of everybody who is, playing within or like within the baseline. So you've got the second baseline here, or got the second baseline here, the third baseline here. Everybody within that diamond is the infield. So third base person is going to be responsible for essentially covering third base. Shortstop covers the gap between the third base person and second base. The first base person covers first base, and the second base person plays between second base and first base. So you end up having essentially sort of a diamond shape of individuals with the pitcher in the middle. And then you have your outfielders, left field, left center, and right field, who are there to catch the really big kicks that come out. So some things to note is each team, when you are fielding, you must have at least 8 folks out there. So the minimum number to play is 8. So say, for example, if you only had 9 people showed up, you could remove one of your outfielders as an example. But ideally, you have 10 fielders, and they are roughly arranged as such. Any questions on fielding and positions, just kind of in terms of the outline? Hearing none, I'll go ahead and move us on to just some definitions. So we've covered the layout of the field. We've covered the idea of having a kicking team and a fielding team. And remember, those two teams will trade off. So, for maybe 5-10 minutes, you'll be the kicking team, and then there'll be a change to you being the fielding team. And that essentially happens when the fielding team successfully accomplishes 3 outs. So let's talk about some vocabulary, speaking of outs. So when we talk about the kicker, so the kicker in kickball is the individual from the kicking team who is currently up to kick the kickball. If you're familiar with softball or baseball, this would be analogous to a batter. But essentially, every single play is going to start with the pitcher releasing the kickball towards home plate. And right behind home plate is going to be where the kicker stands. So the kicker is whoever from the kicking team is set. Everybody takes turns. Every individual takes turns kicking. It's the individual whose turn it is to actually kick the ball. So that is who the kicker is. They stand behind the home plate. What they'll do is they'll kick the ball, and once the kicker kicks the ball, they transform into a runner. There's not like a physical transformation, Although, if some of you want to do like, like a wig reveal or something like that, like you're totally welcome to do that. But once you kick the ball, the kicker then becomes a runner. So the kicker's objective is just to kick the ball that comes from the pitcher. A runner's objective is to successfully go to the next base. So once the kicker kicks the ball, their job is to get to the first base, or specifically the safety base. Like I mentioned earlier, bases are safe zones. So ultimately, runners, the run or the kicking team, your job is to score runs, and you do that by advancing runners all around the bases and returning them to home plate. That's how you score. And these three bases are safe zones. So you can stop at these bases along your way, and rest assured that you won't be out. So what does out mean in the context of kickball? An out occurs when the fielding team is able to get the kickball either to a base or tag a runner with that ball before a runner is able to arrive at a base safely. So when a runner is moving around the bases, if the runner isn't on first, second, or third base, that runner is vulnerable to being out. So we'll cover some of those scenarios here. An out may also occur if the ball makes contact with a runner off the base. So say, for example, if I'm running from second base to third base, and maybe there's a ball that's kicked right here to about the shortstop. So maybe the ball's like right here. The shortstop can pick up the ball and tag the runner with the ball. They can throw it at the runner too. Just don't hit them in the head because then they will be safe. But that would also classify as an out. So essentially, an out occurs when the fielding team is able to corral the ball either to a runner before that runner arrives at a base, or to a base before the runner arrives at the base. If you're the kicking team, you want to avoid accumulating outs. If you're the fielding team, this is your ticket to get back to offense. Any questions regarding some of these terms? A kicker is somebody who is behind home plate, who is going to kick the ball. Once it is pitched to them, the bases are the safe zones that runners can. Once the kicker kicks the ball, they turn into a runner. Bases are safe zones for runners can, stop in order to be safe from being out. And an out is any time the fielding team is able to get the ball to a base before a runner can get there, or any time the fielding team can tag the runner with the ball. Hearing none, I'll go ahead and move us along. So objective, how exactly do you win? Well, the winner of the game is the team that scored the most runs. Remember, a run occurs when a kicker turns into a runner and successfully makes it back to home plate. The fielding team is attempting to prevent the kicking team from accumulating these runs by scoring outs. So let's talk a bit about base running before we get to kicking. And like we'll be addressing the kicker here, but when I say kicking, I mean we're going to talk about like balls and strikes and fouls and that sort of thing later on. Right now, we're going to talk about scenarios for the kicking team as it pertains to running around the bases. So, basic example number one. This is a very, very common setup. So in these illustrations, you'll see that the fielding team is represented by the smiley faces coded in red. The kicking team is going to be represented by smiling faces coded in purple. I don't know why. That's just how it is. So when somebody goes up to kick the ball, in this scenario, you'll see that there is nobody on base, meaning that the purple team or the kicking team does not have anybody who is safe at any base. Each time an inning begins, and what I mean by that is each time a team is up to kick, once they start their turn as the kicking team, this is going to be the arrangement. Whoever the first kicker is going to have this scenario where there's nobody who's on base. Generally speaking, in this scenario, whoever's up to kick is just trying to get to first base. That's, the safest option. So in this example, we're going to review a scenario. So we're going to see the pitcher releases the ball. So you got the pitcher here. They release the ball, this little red thing here. They release the ball towards home plate, towards the kicker. The kicker then kicks the ball towards the left side of the field. And when they do that, they are going to run as fast as they can to first base, specifically the safety base. So you'll see here that the purple smiley face is actually not on the orange base. They've run through the white base to the right. Please, 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 every time you run to first base, get in the habit of running towards the white base. That is going to be the right thing to do 99% of the time. So the runner is going to go ahead and run towards the white base. You'll see that simultaneously, the left fielder, has picked up the ball. And they are going to throw the ball to their first base person in an attempt to get the ball to first base before the runner can get there. Unfortunately for the field team, the runner was too fast. As you can see, they've already made it. So the first base person is then going to give the ball back to the pitcher to end the play. This is very, very, very important, and it's something that a lot of newer players tend to struggle with. When I say every play or every sequence of events begins and ends with the pitcher, this is what I mean. The pitcher, every play starts with the pitcher pitching the ball towards the kicker, and play can continue, meaning runners can continue to move around the bases until the ball is returned to the pitcher to end the play. So if you're newer to the sport and you're not necessarily sure, maybe you pick up the ball and you're not necessarily sure what you should do with it, a relatively safe bet is to throw the ball back to the pitcher if you don't know what to do. And that is because when you get the ball back to the pitcher, you can stop the play and you can stop the runners from being able to advance around the bases. So once the pitcher has the ball, the umpire will blow the whistle. They will say time. They will call any runners who are out as out. They will call any runners who are safe as safe. And the cycle will repeat. We have a hand from J-Lo in the Rainbow Rampage watch party.
Hi there. Sorry for the echo. We got it. This may not come up, but hypothetically, if someone runs through first and then they try to get to second, but then they're like, oh, never mind, I should go back. Do they go back to the white base or do they go back to the real first base?
Great question.
You have to mute it. That. Oh.
I can mute you too, if you want.
Sorry, can you repeat that?
Yeah. Okay, I muted them. That's a great question. With respect to what would happen here, say that the question is, suppose that this purple smiley face here started running towards second base and they decided they weren't going to be able to make it before the fielding team could get the ball there. They would turn around and they would run back to the orange base. So you would be safe once you've rounded first base. So once you've run through the safety base, at that point, the base that you should run back to would be the orange base.
Perfect. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. So we're going to continue with a second example. So we've got our previous kicker safe on first, and the second kicker is going to come up and try and, get on base here. Thanks, Blake, for handling the written record of Q&A. So Once again, like I said, each particular play or each episode of Kickball begins and ends with the pitcher. So the pitcher is going to go ahead and release the ball to the kicker here. So what happens next is the kicker kicks the ball into the field. So you'll see here the ball is kicked towards third base, and the third base person, the fielder, is going to go ahead and pick that ball up. Simultaneously, once contact is made with the ball, so once the kicker kicks the ball, their foot hits the ball. The runner who was on first base is going to take off from this orange base and run towards second as fast as they can. We'll cover why they have to do that in just a moment. But for now, you can just rest assured that in general, runners want to move from first to second to third to home. They're moving towards home plate. Now, in this particular scenario, our third base person, the fielder, is going to pick the ball up. They're going to start running it towards first base. Pro tip, particularly if you're newer, you can usually run faster than the ball can travel in the air. Just if you're not super confident in your ability to throw the ball super hard, it usually helps if you take a few steps before you pass the ball. Anyway, so we've got our runner running from first to second. The kicker is turned into a runner and is running to first. And the third base fielder is going to try and get the ball to first base before the runner can get there. And if we do a quick drum roll, we're going to see whether they make it or not. They don't. Sad to say. Kickball can be a little bit like Planet Earth sometimes. So basically, the first base person is going to catch the ball. And you'll see here that the runner has not yet made it to the white base, to the safety base. So the kicker is out. They were not able to make it to first base before the ball was delivered to the first base person. The first base person you'll see here is standing on their base. So therefore, the runner is out. To complete the play, first base person will pass the ball back to the pitcher, but you'll see that the individual on second is safe. Any questions on that particular scenario? Okay, let's talk about why, if bases are safe zones, why did the person on first base have to run to second? It's because of a concept called a forced or an unforced out. So there's a rule in kickball that each base may only house one runner at a time. You cannot have two runners on the same base. There's a consequence of this. If you are a runner and you're on a base and there are no empty bases behind you, it means that you are somebody who has to run to the next base unless the ball is caught. So why is that? So let's go back to our scenario here. You have somebody on first base and a kicker at home plate. This individual is going to kick the ball, right? And they're going to be running towards first base. They're running as fast as they can go. This person, this runner who is on first base right now, cannot stay there. And they can't stay there because the kicker is running to first base. So the kicker's trying to get to first base, which forces the runner who is on first base to get to second base. They are not going to be safe if they remain at first base. So that's the concept of a forced out. A forced out means that you have to run. So if you're a forced runner, it means that there are no empty bases behind you and you have to run on the next play. So let's take a look at what that might look like in the context of an unforced runner. So back to our example, if we remember, the first kicker we looked at is safe and sound at second base. Unfortunately, the second kicker did not make it to first base. Womp womp. But that does have an implication on this runner who's on second base. So if we look at the bases behind this person, there's only one. First, they're on second base. There's only one base that's behind second base, and that is first base. And when I say behind, I mean sequentially. So third base has two bases behind it. It has second and first. So the runner on second base, they have an empty first base behind them. So does that mean, just question for the audience, does that mean they are forced or does that mean that they are unforced? Does this runner have to go to third? Going once, going twice. Okay. This runner is not forced, and they're not forced because this kicker here is going to be running from home plate and they must reach first base, right? But they don't necessarily have to reach second base. They only have to get to first. That means that the runner who is on second base is not required to run. Jayla, did you have a question or an answer to the question? We good? Okay. I'm just gonna keep talking. I'm gonna keep talking. So let's go over this scenario. Okay, so the pitcher releases the ball towards the kicker. So the kicker is going to kick the ball into the field and they're going to run towards first base like we've covered. Because there is an empty base behind the second base runner, meaning there's a place for the kicker to run to without, having two runners on the same base, it means they can just chill. They don't have to run. And in this particular case, you'll see the ball was kicked right here between second and third base. I would recommend that they don't run because if they try to run, they might get tagged with the ball. So what's going to happen here is this individual, the kicker, is going to kick the ball to left field. They're going to make it to first base and they're going to be safe. Once again, the fielder passed the ball to the pitcher to end the play. Remember, that's super important. But this is an example of an unforced runner. There are times when you as a runner do not have to run. And the way that you know that is look back behind you. So from where you came from, is there a base that is unoccupied? And if there is a base that's unoccupied, you do not have to run. You can if you want, but you're not forced to do so. Any questions on that? Hearing none. We're going to cover one more particular scenario as it pertains to base running. So these are called fly balls, otherwise called as pop flies, otherwise called, my kicks. So basically a fly ball is any time that a ball has been kicked and has not hit the ground. So if you kick the ball in this particular illustration, you'll see the kicker kicks the ball. This curve line represents aerial flight. The ball does not hit the ground. If a fielder is able to catch the ball before it hits the ground, that is considered an out. So all runners, in the event that this happens, must touch their current base after a field catches, if a field makes contact with the fly ball, so the ball is up in the air and it hasn't touched the ground yet, once that ball either makes contact with the ground or a fielder touches it, the runners are, free to run. So let's take a look at what that looks like in the context of our lovely little situation here. So remember, we have a runner on first base, we have a runner on second base, and now we have a kicker here. Just like always, the pitcher is going to release the ball towards home plate. The kicker is going to kick the ball and they pop it up. So it's a fly ball. The ball goes up off the foot, it's in the air, and it has not hit the ground. Notice that while that ball is in the air, the runners on first and second base haven't left their bases. Remember in the previous scenarios, once the ball was kicked, the runner started to run. But these runners know that if the fielder team is able to catch this ball, they're going to have to do what's called tagging up, which means they have to touch their base before they can run. So in this scenario, the right fielder catches the fly ball. You'll see that I removed the kicker's smiling face. They are out. But the first base runner and the second base runner both touched their bases. And once that contact is made between the fielder and the ball, the runners can run. So the runner who was on second base, they touch second base with their foot, when the catch was made, and now they are free to run to third base, which they successfully are able to do. And the right fielder passes the ball back to the pitcher. This is a bit more of it's less intuitive than a lot of the rules in kickball. But as a general rule, if there's a ball that's kicked and it's super high into the air, as long as your team doesn't have 2 outs, it's usually a good idea for you to wait around close to the base that you're currently on before you go running. Any questions on fly balls? Feel free to type in the chat. You can also reach out to your captain or anybody on the board if you have questions. But this is the type of thing it takes a little bit of experience to get comfortable with. But just know that balls that don't hit the ground are vulnerable to being caught. And when that happens, make sure that you touch the base that you are on. So quick little thing here on kicking. So we talked about base running. Let's talk about the actual process of kicking. So in kickball, there are balls and strikes. So a strike consists of if you swing at the ball and you miss it, or if you do not kick a ball that proceeded through the strike zone. A ball is a ball that is pitched outside of the strike zone, and a ball that bounces fewer than 2 times before crossing the front of the plate. So before we get into that, what is a strike? What is the strike zone? The strike zone is a 3-dimensional pentagram prism that spans. So looking at it from the bird's eye view, it spans 9¼ inches from each edge of the home plate. We use large home plates, remember. So it spans about 9¼ in each direction here. Thanks, Blake. Yes, it's a pentagonal prism, not pentagram prism. Although I like pentagram prism personally. Anyway, so it's 9¼ of an inch from each side of the plate. Basically what this means is if any part of the ball impedes into that region, like if, say, the corner of the ball comes in like this, follow my mouse, right? It comes within the boundary of that gray line. That is going to be a ball in the strike zone. Don't worry too much about the dimensions. When you're out on the field, we will demark the strike zone with orange paint. So for your purposes, if any part of the ball impedes or crosses or touches that orange line, you know that you're looking at a ball in the strike zone. 2 other things have to happen. The ball must bounce twice. So remember, the pitcher releases the ball, and the ball has to hit the ground twice before it crosses the front of the plate. And the front of the plate is the non-pointee side. So the ball must bounce twice. If it doesn't bounce twice, if it only bounces once, then it's going to be a ball. And the other thing is the ball can't be too bouncy. So if the ball enters the strike zone and is bounced twice, but maybe it's a super bouncy pitch, if that ball comes more than a foot off the ground, which is around knee height for a lot of people, not everybody, but just kind of a decent gauge. Average adult, probably about a foot, probably about knee high. If the ball comes above that, then it's going to be a ball. The ball can't be too bouncy, so it can't exceed 1 feet or 1 foot. It can only bounce, it cannot bounce fewer than 2 times, and it has to be within the orange paint. So sufficiently connected to the ground, can't bounce too high, and has to be within the parameters of the plate. And again, if you don't kick a pitch that goes within the strike zone, that's going to be a strike. Any ball that is pitched outside of the strike zone or, only bounces once is going to be a ball. So as a kicker, the way that we do counts in Stonewall Kickball for San Francisco is strikes and fouls, which we'll cover in a second, are combined into a single count. So you get 4 strikes. You also get 4 balls. So if the pitcher pitches 4 balls, you will walk to first base. If the pitcher pitches 4 balls and you do not accumulate any strikes, you get to take 2 bases. Before I go on to fouls, are there any questions on what constitutes a strike? There are 3 criteria. The ball must bounce twice before reaching home plate. It cannot bounce higher than 1 foot high off the ground once it crosses home plate. And it has to be within the painted orange boundary. Makes sense? Okay. So, what is fair and what is foul? One of my favorite Shakespearean quotes is, "Fair is foul and foul is fair." That's from the night that Macbeth murders King Duncan, for those of you who, are into that kind of thing. Let's talk about fairs and fouls, though. So as a kicker, you're out after you accumulate, like I said, a combined 4 strikes and fouls. Also a foul ball, if it's a pop fly or if it's a fly ball, it can be caught. Foul balls, don't worry too much about this. Basically, don't kick the ball in front of the plate. So you see home plate here. Make sure that you're kicking the ball behind home plate. So you're making contact behind the front line here. Don't step on the ball and don't kick the ball multiple times or with your knee. Kick the ball with your foot or your shin, only touch it once, and don't kick it in front of the plate. For a kick to be considered foul, there are certain criteria that have to be met. So the first one, so here's our diamond, right? Here's our kickball field, looking at it from the bird's eye view. If the ball first makes contact with the ground outside of the fall lines, or if it touches, or if the fielder, runs to try and catch it. Basically, if the ball first makes contact with any object or human being or squirrel or dog or whatever it is, hopefully not a dog, but if it first makes contact with another object in this red shaded area, basically you have a line between the back of home plate and the edge of first base, like you see here, and the edge of third base, like you see here. If the ball first makes contact with any object outside or within that red shaded area, it is a foul ball. Or if the ball, say for example, first touches the ground within the field, so maybe the ball is kicked from first and it makes contact with the ground right here, but then it rolls into this red area, then it will be foul. So what constitutes a foul ball? Any ball that makes contact with the ground or a person for the first time in any of the shaded area, or a ball can be foul if it rolls from the fair territory, so the non-shaded area, and into the red shaded area. Excuse me, the coral silk area. Any questions on what constitutes fair and foul? Essentially, keep the ball in bounds, keep it between first and third base. and you won't have to worry about it. But hypothetically, say that you kick a ball, right? Maybe you kick a fly ball and it hits the ground right here in the green area and then rolls into the blue area. It's a fair ball because it was able to get past the first baseline. Or it was able to get past first or third base. It'll start making more sense. Ryan, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, not a question, but just if this is still a little confusing, your umpire will let you know that you've kicked a foul ball if you kick a foul ball, typically by blowing a whistle. And when you hear the whistle, if you were at booty camp, you know, play's dead.
Mhm. And you can ask your ump why it was foul. Umps are there to help out, just with understanding the rules, particularly in the first few weeks of the season. If you don't know why it's foul, it's okay to ask. Just be respectful about it, please. Okay. So, a little bit of a recap. We're talking about outs. These are what the fielders are trying to accumulate. You can be out as a kicker if you strike out. So you accumulate 4 strikes in fouls or fouls. Or the fielder catches your fly ball. It can be foul or fair. If that happens, the kicker is out. Against runners, fielders can tag the runner with the ball, just not in the head. By the way, if you're a runner and you're running away from somebody with the ball, you can't just run out of the baseline. We will call you out for that. You can't just like run towards the bathroom to like get away. Force runner out, so bringing the ball to a base before a first runner arrives. So remember that example where we had a runner on first base, but here runner on first base, you are forced to run to second. So if the fielding team gets the ball to second before you're able to get there, you are out. Just a final thing to note, fielders must permit a safe passage to runners. So if you're a runner and you're running around the base and you're trying to get to, say, second base, fielders need to allow a safe passage. They can't just, block your way.
Unless you have
But
the ball.
yes, unless they have the ball. But if the fielder does give you safe passage to a base, if there's a way for you to get to, say, second base without colliding with the fielder, and you collide with the fielder anyway, you're going to be called out. Basically, try not to collide with other people. So, quick recap. Kickball is a game between 2 teams, fielding team and kicking team. You will take turns. When you are the fielding team, you are attempting to get the opposing runners out through the following methods: striking the runner out, delivering a ball to a base, or tagging a runner with a ball. You can also, of course, catch fly balls. The goal in getting these outs is to prevent runners from reaching home plate and therefore prevent them from scoring. When you are the kicking team, your objective is to score runs. A kicker is going to attempt to become a runner by making it to first base safely, by not striking out, giving a kick that is hard to catch. Because remember, if you kick a ball and it's caught, tough luck, you're out. Delivering a kick that is far from other runners. So this is a little bit more strategic, a little bit more kickball 201. But basically, remember, you and your other runners are on the same team. So if you have a runner on second base and a runner on first base, generally not a good idea to kick to third because your runner on second base isn't going to be able to make it. The goal of a runner is to make it home safely by getting to the next base before the ball does and not get pegged. Cool. My Logorrhea has come to an end. Questions, comments, complaints, feedback. Happy to field anything like that.
Yes, here. Thank you very much, Tom. Amazing job giving the run through here. Bravo. Appreciate you.
Mhm.
Can I ask a question? Sorry.
Question time. Go for it.
Oh, okay.
Done.
So if you're running to first or second, whatever base, and the someone there is blocking your path because they have a ball and they're trying to tag you, the ball actually has to touch you. Like if you like run into that person, but the ball never touches you, does like that count as a tag?
So you're saying in this scenario, fielder has the ball,
Mhm.
and you are somehow able to not be touched by the ball, but some
Run
other
like
part
let's
of
say
the
the person's in your way waiting to catch the ball. They catch the ball, but they happen to be like facing the wrong direction. You collide into that person, but they never actually touch you with the ball. Can you like if you can you get
if
to the
you collide with that person, then yeah, you would be out.
even if they were in your way?
Correct, because Blake added this on as a caveat to my rule about fielders must permit safe passage. If the fielder has the ball in their hands, they can stand in your way. They have the ball and they can chase you down.
And
That's acceptable.
you so even if like you run into them, that's still out on you, even though they're in your way.
Correct.
Okay.
Do not run into a fielder.
Oh
Do
no,
not do that. Yeah.
I'm just in case, things happen.
So
Yes.
usually in that scenario, what'll happen is the runner will try to like go around the fielder. Remember, you're allowed 4 feet in either direction of the baseline. So, if you're running here, let me pull up a diagram, right? So you're running, right? Like suppose that the ball is actually over here by the third base person. You can try and get around. You can duck, you can try and juke the fielder out, but yeah, if the fielder has the ball, they're well within their right to run directly at you with it, even if they're in your way.
I have a question.
Mhm.
I noticed on the schedule or in the that it has home and away designations. Are we actually going by those or are we
No,
being
you'll Rochambeau. It's just
okay, fine.
it's
Oh,
you
cool.
have to have it. You have to have it. JLo's question is essentially are teams designated as home and away, and by implication, kicking or fielding first based on the schedule? And the answer to that is no. That will be decided by a rock, paper, scissors between the captains. Any other questions? You are always welcome to reach out to your captain, or you can email us directly. You can ask your umpire during games if you have questions about rules. We're happy to help. This isn't no one's playing for sponsorships here, right? Like, and I encourage everybody here to um, support the other people in the league in learning the rules. If you notice there's a new player who maybe seems a little bit, confused or lost about what to do, don't be shy to encourage them, provide some input. It's a friendly league. Okay, well, get that back, Queen. Any other questions before we conclude the recording here? Going once, going twice. All right, well, I'll stop the recording. I'll hang around for another second if anything comes up. But thank you all for joining us this fine evening. And thank you for